Hello guys, it's Obley here, and today I'm bringing you the 11.2 Season 3 Unholy Guide. Now, we did receive a bit of a rework, but it wasn't major, and to be honest, a lot of our rotational abilities stay the same in terms of priority, but we did receive some cool little tidbits in the talent trees that we'll go over now. So, without further ado, let's hop right in. Okay, so what actually changed with Season 3? So, our Mastery was probably the biggest change that we faced. This completely changed how we look at crit now. So our Mastery increases the critical strike damage of pets and diseases. So because of this, crit, haste and Mastery are pretty much on par with each other, which is actually really nice. It does mean that switching gear between Frost and Unholy is nowhere near as difficult as it used to be. But it does mean you still want to have like a soft cap of 21k haste, 21k Mastery, and then put the rest into crit, just because you don't want to face that DR if you don't need to, because crit is so good, so you may as well just put it into crit. But to talk about the talents next, Apocalypse was changed so that when you pick Apocalypse, it replaces Dark Transformation now. It's alright actually, it just means it's one less button in your CD sequence to press. I actually don't think it's too bad at all. But then they changed things like Defile, so now Defile doesn't reduce the cooldown, Desecrate does, a brand new talent. They removed a few talents and added some, so they removed things like Runic Mastery, Rupture Viscera, Vile Contagion, Pestilence, all of those things are gone, and then they added Desecrate, they added Grave Mastery, Plague Mastery, just more things to add to our effectiveness in respect to our Mastery. And then they actually split the node for Clawing Shadows and Plague Bringer, which I thought was weird that was a thing anyway. So it's good that happened. Not to mention as well, they changed a couple of talents around as well, like buffed Command of the Dead. Magus now fires shadow bolts up to 8 targets, or will serve. The actual our little skeletal archer has been changed as well, and given a fresh new look. Now, Bursting Swords was then capped at 8, and we lost our Abomination limb, which I don't think is the end of the world. However, you do still have the animation if you miss it in Legion of Souls. Now, this basically just does damage around you, puts wounds on targets around you, and gives you Death and Decay. Does very good damage, especially in commander builds, but essentially you can walk around with your Death and Decay buff. Now this is also frequent in the Desecrate change. So Desecrate is a brand new ability. When you cast Death and Decay, you can consume it again, so 2 globals essentially to make it happen. It'll either put wounds on the targets or pop loads of wounds and give you a walking Death and Decay buff. This is good for popping, not for generating realistically. Something else very cool is Reaping. So Reaping right here got a buff. Soul Reaper's execute effect increases the damage of your minions by 10% for 8 seconds. Now, this is good, but it's only good if you're really playing a minion build. If you decide to go down the route of a super strain build with your diseases instead, you don't really care too much about the execute effect off of this. But if you are playing things like Menace and Magus, Legion of Souls, Command of the Dead, then I would suggest searching for scenarios where you can take advantage of this. Now we also have the new tier sets coming, and for Sand Lane, it's heavily focused on Infliction of Sorrow. Both the 2 set and the 4 set increases the damage of Infliction of Sorrow and the consumption ability as well afterwards. It also increases the damage of your Ghoul and gives you a little bit of Mastery on top of your already very powerful, very potent Essence buff. Now the set for Ryder is pretty big. Every time you cast Apocalypse, White Mane will spawn, and her Undeath deals extra damage, and her Death Coil deals extra damage. But the 4 set, when you cast Death Coil, she will cast Death Coil. When you cast Epidemic, she will cast Epidemic. And in addition to that, my Death Coil, your Death Coil, deals 40% increased damage to anything affected by Undeath. So that's a pretty big spike. At the moment, there's so many different builds you can play. So when the question comes, what is the best? It's so difficult to tell you. Right now, it looks like Ryder is going to be overtaking Sand Lane very soon. Sand Lane still does okay, but because Ryder is slightly better and because we've just had a tier full of Sand Lane, it makes sense to go over the Ryder rotation in today's video. If you are interested in all the builds that are currently circulating around in the Unholy Ethos, I will have a link to them all down below that you can copy straight into the game. Okay, so the opener is fairly simple for Ryder. You just want to open up with a Festering Strike if you're in single target, raise A-Bomb or Legion of Souls if you're in AOE, then Apocalypse, and then Unholy Assault, and follow the normal rotation. You want to pair your potion with Raise Abomination because both of those last 30 seconds, and then you want to pair your trinket with Unholy Assault because it's likely that you might have a trinket that's 20 seconds or 15, and Unholy Assault is 20 seconds, so it makes sense to pair it there. Bear in mind, in AoE, you don't need to press Festering Strike. You can just completely get rid of this step because Legion of Souls will start the wound generation for you. Now, The priority list is quite large, so this will be quite a wall of text, but I encourage you just to pause the video and look through it all. But I'll run through the priority now. So you want to outbreak the target and make sure that it's always dotted up. But if Apocalypse is about to come back off cooldown, so you have like 7 seconds left, I wouldn't worry too much. The damage is not that good. Now, if you are in AOE, Festering Scythe would then take the second spot. In single target, you would just ignore Festering Scythe and Death and Decay in this priority list. Clawing Shadows, if Trollbanes is up, is at number 4. And then at number 5, it's Soul Reaper if the target will be under 35% HP in 5 seconds. Then at number 6, you have Death Coil or Epidemic at 4 targets or more if you have over 80 runic power or Sudden Doom has been procced. At 7, you have Clawing Shadows with Rotten Touch on the target. Then 8, Festering Strike if you have 2 or less Festering Wounds if it's single target, or you need to build for a scythe. If it's none of these two, so it's not single target and you're not building for a scythe, then you don't need to worry about casting Festering Strike in AoE. At number 9, Clawing Shadows to make sure that Plaguebringer is always up and running, so this is at number 9 if it is not. And then number 10, Death Coil / Epidemic if Death Rot's about to expire. And then 11, Clawing Shadows if you have 3 or more Festering Wounds. Number 12, spending runic power. Now for the talent build, you would run this for pure single target. Then if there was a single target boss with occasional adds, you would take off Coil and put on Mages for that massive add wave cleave. And then if you want a Mythic Plus build, you take off All Serve and Rotten Touch, put on Bursting Swords and Festering Scythe. And then this would be your Mythic Plus pet build. Now, like I said before, all the builds that you possibly could have and the ones that are decent at the moment are linked in the bio if you want to take a look at those. Now with Rider, the AoE and the single target rotation is basically the exact same thing. You just want to follow those 2 steps at the start of the priority rotation instead. So having Festering Scythe be at the top priority and having Death and Decay down. As long as you have those 2 things, your single target rotation all of a sudden becomes your AoE rotation. And then we're also switching out Death Coil to Epidemic at 4 targets. Now that's basically it for the rotation for Rider. I would go over the Sand Lane rotation, but we have just had a season full of Sand Lane and the rotation hasn't actually changed at all. So what I have done is created a full written up guide with the rotation for Sand Lane in there in case you are new to the spec. So I won't be going over that in this video, but it will be there if you want to check it out. As for gearing, you want to focus on Haste, Mastery and Crit for both Sand Lane and for Rider. So 21k Haste, 21k Mastery and then the rest all into Crit. You want to avoid versatility as much as possible. For the trinkets, you're going to want the Araz Ritual Forge paired with the Antenna. Now the Antenna is really good. It just got buffed. It provides quite a hefty amount of critical strike. And because we like crit now, it's very, very good. Don't even have to do much to get that crit either. Yeah, the orbs come to you. It's super good. Then you want to have your Reshi wraps and you want to have your Reshi boots. Now, in order to know which fiber to use, you're going to have to sim yourself. If you don't have 21k Haste or Mastery, then it might be one of those 2 first. If you do, then it might sim that crit is better. So you definitely want to run that through one of the robots to find that out. For the embellishments, it's going to be a crit wrist or crit belt. Now the reason being is because the disc belt is supposed to be nerfed. I think right now it's you need to have a myth track embellishment belt for it to be better than disc. But I cannot see this staying that way. They will definitely nerf the disc belt so that the crafted belt will be better. So it still stays the same. Crit belt, crit wrist. If you get really unlucky with weapons or anything like that, you could go into the direction of crafting a 2-hander if you get 2 sparks. But again, that will get replaced and you do want to have the maximum item level weapon that you can get because everything scales off of that. And then, not to mention with the weapon as well, it is Fallen Crusader in all scenarios. For macros, I just have a few different macros that I use. So I have my Unholy Assault macro, which pairs my Racial and my Trinket with it. And then I have my Army of the Dead macro, which pairs my Potion with that. So I always pop Army first, and then I do my UA afterwards. Now this one will change to Legion of Souls or to Raise Abomination, depending on which one you're expecting to. Then I have my Death and Decay macro. So this just puts a Death and Decay on me, where I'm stood, and I find that this is very useful. I mean, not going to lie, I'm almost never going to be in a position where I'm going to be away from my D&D, so for me to put it up my cursor or something like that, not really, for me personally, my gameplay, I'm always going to be at the place I need D&D to be. I also have a cursor macro for D&D if I wanted to, and that would be handy for just placing something over there if I knew I'm going to be there in a couple seconds time, but realistically, the player one does it for me perfectly. I'm at the mobs, I'm going to be at the mobs, I want to be at the mobs when I'm bursting anyway, when I've got my Death and Decay down, so the player macro really, really helps. Now this is the best macro you will have entirely. If you don't take anything from this video, take this. So it's the pet attack macro. So I have it bound to Deathcore because it's my single target runic spender. I'm most likely going to be focusing a target with Deathcore, and therefore I want my pets to be there too. Now having /pet attack at the start means that I can command my pet to attack what I'm attacking. So if I press this, pet instantly changes. Now here's where it gets good. If you have all of your riders and everything attacking what you're attacking there, with one simple pet attack macro, all of them change. Everybody changes, and they all fight what you're fighting, including your maguses. Amazing. What a macro. I always have this bound to Deathcore pretty much, but you could have it as a separate ability if you wanted to. As for the add-ons that I use, the biggest one I have to say is weak auras. Weak auras are fantastic. Seeing all of this here within my eyesight and not having to like, check and whiz over to my peripheral vision to go over there and then come back and lose eyesight of something is massive. I love my weak auras. I spent a lot of time making those. But you have things like defensives, auto attack swing timer, runic power bar. You don't really need an auto attack swing timer for Unholy. But then you have like riders here, and then you have like sand lane stuff here as well, and then more important sand lane stuff would be in the middle. So then I also have Omni CC, which puts these lovely little numbers there. Then I also have unhalted unit frames for my unit frames, which is a lot less CPU intensive than LVY. I have LVY profiles available to make it look exactly the same if you are an LVY user. Then I have true stat values, which allows me to see the true stat values. So once I get to a certain breakpoint, afterwards you hit a diminishing return, and this will tell me if any of the gear that I'm wearing will proc, and in that proc will it diminish, etc. That's very useful. I think this add-on is a must for people doing good high-level content. And also Plater. Plater is so good because it's so customizable. You can make it do anything. I think it looks really nice this way. But that's pretty much it for the add-ons that I use. Well, that is it, guys. That is my 11.2 Unholy DK guide. I hope you guys learned something. If you're interested in more DK tips and tricks, just basically the goings-on of DK, feel free to subscribe to the channel and you'll always stay up to date. But if you want coaching, hit me up on Metafire, and if you want my UI, head over to my Discord if you're a Twitch sub. But thank you very much, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.